As you study Korean, you've probably realized that words are not always pronounced exactly as they are written. For example, how would you pronounce these words? 만다, 있다, 한국어? Not really. They are actually pronounced 많다, 있다, and 한국어. Because in Korean, words are not always pronounced exactly as they are written. Today, we are going to learn about these pronunciation rules. First, do you know how to pronounce these 5 different words? Surprisingly, they are all pronounced the same way, not. That's because Batchim, which means Korean final consonants, are pronounced using only 7 sounds. On the left, you have the written Batchim letters, and on the right, you have their actual pronunciation. It might seem like a lot to memorize, but don't worry. It's actually quite simple. You only need to remember 4 main ones: 기역, 디귿, 시옷, 비읍. 기역 and its variants are all pronounced as 기역. 디귿 and 시옷 with its variants are pronounced as 디귿. 비읍 and its variant, 피읍, are pronounced as 비읍. The rest are easy. They are pronounced just as they are written. So now you can understand why all those 5 words I mentioned earlier are pronounced the same, not. Now we've covered the basic final consonant pronunciation. Let's move on to the first rule. The first rule is 유기음화. Earlier I said 많다 is not pronounced 만다, but 많다. Why? Because when a final consonant, 히읗, is followed by a consonant like 기역, 디귿, 비읍, or 지읒, these consonants become their aspirated forms, 기역, 디귿, 피읍, and 치읓. In 많다, the final 히읗 is followed by 디귿, so 디귿 becomes 티귿. That's why we pronounce it 많다. Another example is this one. The final 히읗 is followed by 기역, so 기역 becomes 키읔, and is pronounced 좋고, not 좋고. Now let's talk about the second rule, 경음화. The word tensification might sound difficult, but don't worry. It simply means making a consonant sound stronger or tenser. It's a pronunciation rule where a single consonant becomes a double consonant. How do you pronounce this word? Like 학교? No, it's 학교, because when the final consonant of the first syllable ends with 기역, 디귿, 비읍, and the second syllable begins with the consonants 기역, 디귿, 비읍, 시옷, 지옷, these consonants are pronounced as 쌍기역, 쌍디귿, 쌍비읍, 쌍시옷, 쌍지옷 instead. For example, 학교 is one of those cases. The first syllable ends in 기역, and the next syllable starts with 기역, so 기역 becomes 쌍기역. The same rule applies to this word. 학 ends in 기역, and 생 starts with 시옷, so it's not 학생, but 학생. There is a second type of tensification too. When a Sino-Korean word has 리을 at the end of one syllable and is followed by 디귿, 시옷, or 지읒, the next consonant becomes double. For example, this word is not pronounced as 말살, it's 말살. And this word is not pronounced as 갈등, but 갈등. Let's move on to the next rule, 비음화. How do you pronounce this word? Is it 국물? No, it's 국물. That's because when 기역, 디귿, or 비읍 come before 니은 or 미음, they change to nasal sounds, 이응, 니은, or 미음. For example, this word doesn't sound 국물, it sounds 국물. And another example, you pronounce this word as 학년, not 학년. There is another case of 비음화. When 리을 comes after 미음 or 이응, 리을 becomes 니은. For example, this word is not pronounced as 종로, it's pronounced as 종로. Now let's move on to the next rule, 유음화. How would you pronounce this word? 달님? No, is 달림. Because when 니은 and 리을 are next to each other, 니은 changes to 리을. In this word, the consonant 니은 comes before 리을. So 니은 changes to 리을 and is pronounced as 달림. Similarly, in this word, the 니은 also changes to 리을. So is pronounced as 논리. The fifth rule is 구개음화. How do you pronounce this word? 같이? No, it's 같이. That's because when 디귿 or 티읕 meets the vowel 이, they change to 지읒 or 치읒 sounds. In this word, 티귿 meets the vowel 이, so the 티귿 changes to a 치읒 sound. Similarly, in this word, 디귿 meets 이, so the 디귿 changes to a 지읒 sound. Now let's move on to the next rule, 여는 법칙. This is just like in English. For example, in English, you don't say come in as two separated words. You just say come in. In Korean, when a syllable ends in a consonant and the next syllable starts with a vowel, the final consonant links to the next syllable. Let's look at some examples. How would you pronounce this word? 한국어? No, it's 한국어. That's because the final consonant 기역 from 국 meets the vowel 어. So the 기역 moves to the next syllable. Then what about this word? Here the final consonant 리을 비읍 meets the vowel 이. So part of the final consonant moves to the next syllable. As you can see, in the case of double final consonants, usually only the second consonant moves over. However, 히읗 is never linked to the next syllable. It always just disappears. So this word is not pronounced 노하, but 노아. And finally, let's talk about double 받침. This was actually mentioned in the first Korean video. However, it's important. Let me go over it one more time. There are a total of 11 types of double 받침 used in Korean. It might look difficult because there are a lot of characters, but actually, it's not that hard. The basic rule is only the first consonant is pronounced. However, there are 3 exceptions: 리을 미음, 리을 피읍, and 리을 기역. In those 3, you pronounce the second consonant instead. So you just need to memorize those 3 exceptions. The rest always use the first consonant sound. Not too difficult, right? These words are pronounced as 닭, 암, 읍다, because you read the second consonant. For words that don't use 리을 미음, 리을 피읍, or 리을 기역, you only need to pronounce the first consonant. 목, 안다, 많다, 잃다, 갑. Today we studied several pronunciation rules that are helpful when reading Hangul. It was a bit difficult, right? In fact, there are many more rules and exceptions that I didn't cover in this video. That's why even native Koreans often don't fully understand all the pronunciation rules of Hangul. We've been using Korean since birth, so we know how to pronounce words naturally, but many people don't actually know the rules from a grammatical point of view. So, what I really want to say is, don't stress too much about memorizing all the pronunciation rules. Just watch this video and think like, so there are rules like this. That level of understanding is more than enough. Because the words that are used frequently are somewhat predictable. So if you focus on those and simply understand why some words are not pronounced the way they are written, you will not have much trouble learning Korean. 국화, 법학, 국밥, 밥상, 국민, 남루, 신라, 칼날, 바치, 굳히다, 먹이, 음악, 얇다, 밥다.